to be the one to host you. So you're welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you. First and foremost, morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are. I have to congratulate you all for this initiative. I think initiatives like this nature are what we need, right? And secondly, I think the event, it's one of those things that we're here to listen, we're here to learn from one another, right? It's an honor and a privilege for me to share my experience, my lived experience, and I'm hoping that at least one person can walk away with something that would either inspire them or would either make them change or think about how they do things, how they empower each other, how they empower women, whatever the case may be. And third, I appreciate the invitation. Like I said, it is truly an honor, although it's like almost 7 a.m. in New York. But hey, it's what we do for the continent. So when Prince asked me to talk about the future of banking in Africa, I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh my God, I've never worked in the continent. Who am I? Am I equipped to talk about the industry in a continent that I had no lived experience? And I paused and I was like, guess what? No, I do have the experience from someone that's been working in the industry for almost 16 years, primarily in the West, but we can actually transport that experience to the continent, and that is the whole purpose of it, building that bridge. The topic itself, the future, I'm going to talk about the current status, how I see it based on experience, and anything that I say is on my behalf and not on behalf of my bank, which is Standard Chartered Bank. So my views and thoughts are what I'm sharing at the moment. The current environment or banking environment in the continent, I would say that it's extremely optimistic. And I say this because we have seen a huge growth. There's a huge expansion at the moment, specifically when you talk about banks from Nigeria or Kenya and SA. If I could just ask that we mute whoever is not intervening, I think it's just better for everyone's experience. Is that okay?
Thank you. Sorry about that, Sonia.
No problem. No problem. It's difficult to manage these things, you know, but hey, it's the world that we're living in at the moment. But so like I was saying, so we've seen a lot, right? That expansion, especially from these three countries that I mentioned, the big players, right? The Nigeria, the Kenya, and you see how this is happening in a gradual manner, and I'm seeing happening through a lot of mergers and acquisitions. And why? Because I think there's a huge appetite in making sure that we have a cohesive environment, banking environment in the continent. Now, with that optimistic look that I just gave you, I think the key things that we should continue to focus on to make sure that that expansion, transbords the continent and we are seen as a key players in the West, we need to do a couple of things. And I'll try and list it. I know the time is of essence, but I'll list it on a couple of things. One, we need to think about our regulatory environment, right? So the regulatory landscape when it comes to financial services in the continent is still developing, right? It's not at par with the West. It's not at par with the European Union, for example, where they have a cohesive regulatory framework. So in Africa, due to our, different legal jurisdiction, the challenges with the languages, all of these makes it quite difficult to implement regulations, but I think we are going towards the right direction, right? I think the end goal is to create a Pan-African committee that will make sure that when regulations are being discussed and are being, implemented, we have this one front that we approach that, and that will strengthen our banking environment. The second piece, which for me I'm very passionate about, is the human capital. We often hear about human capital, and for those that don't know, human capital is an essence, is key for the development of the economy of any country. That has been proven with a lot of research. And what human capital means in very layman terms is the skills, the knowledge that our people need to perform their functions, their roles, right? In any industry, in any company, any firm that you have, you need people. You need people to do the work, you need people to manage, and you need people to lead, right? So when you think about human capital, having in the back of your mind is the quality of people that you have running an industry or a sector. And banking is no different to any other industry, right? Human capital is key for the performance of the sector and is key for our people as well to learn and develop. And if I pause there to talk about the learning and development piece, how do we do that? We create pathways for our employees. We create the development programs where you identify talent, where you encourage talent. And at what age do you do that? At a young age. And that is why it's pertinent when we all come together and we recognize the challenges that we have from different, the spectrum is quite wide, but once we recognize the challenges that we have in a particular sector, in a particular area, we can then take action. The third piece that I would say it's definitely the innovation, which a lot of us are passionate about, right? This digital space that we often talk about. I think if I can pick Nigeria and Kenya, for example, these are in the forefront. These two countries we know, and it has been for a number of years, they are in the forefront of that digital space, right? We are seeing more and more telecom companies partnering with banks to achieve that, right? Whereby we talk about financial inclusion, right? And I'm picking that topic and I'm doing that on purpose. Financial inclusion has been discussed for a number of years, right? And we often think, how do we achieve that? There's billions of people. I think the last research was like 300 and odd million people that didn't have a bank account, right? So how do you do that? It's not accessible to all. So when I'm bringing this to the digital world, if you know that there is a vacuum there is something that needed to be addressed, then you see how the digital world has been able to tackle that gap that we have in the continent. People are now having more access to financial services through their mobiles, as simple as that. And then with that access to financial services comes education, that educational piece, right? So combining the fact that there is a need to educate our people, you do that through these tools. And brings me to the very last topic, which is the partnership, a partnership between banking and fintechs as well as entrepreneurs, right? Very, very key when we talk about entrepreneurship in Africa. Banking is essential for any entrepreneur that wants to launch a business, want to scale up their businesses. But a lot of people do not have that access, like I mentioned, and this is why fintech companies come into play, right? And when you see that partnership between banks and fintechs to provide a service to the client, because that is the end goal, that is truly how we move forward, right? In terms of, I'll just quickly recap those points: regulatory landscape, human capital, innovation, so technology, the digital, and fourth, the partnership between banking, fintech, and entrepreneurs. That is a 4 point. And I'll come to a close soon because I want to bring something that is a key element: women. What is the role of women in all of this? We know that it's been proven that women plays a key part in the economy of any country, let alone in Africa. We have our traders, our informal traders. They bring a lot of money to the economy. It might not be formal, but we all know one way, shape, or form. In my country, Guinea-Bissau, I've seen it. A lot of the women in different sectors, they're the ones that are driving commerce. Agriculture, we see women doing that. And I think it's the same in a lot of other countries in our continent. So women have to be empowered to do that, right? I often say to people, What does empowerment mean? Empowerment just means it's a self-belief. You need to believe in yourself. You need to kill all these limiting beliefs that we grew up with. You need to have someone that is helping you recognize the skills that you have, the talent that you have to do whatever you feel like you want to do, right? No one should govern or dictate what you want to do in any industry. I speak for banking because it's my area of expertise, and that's where I've always worked. But it applies to everything. So if you think about it, we have a huge gap between male and female in a lot of like leadership positions, for example. And that is a battle here in the West, whereby a lot of us are extremely, we are experts and we are great at what we do, but not everyone achieves a level of prominence. Not because they're not competent, but because maybe an opportunity has not been given, right? So if you think about it, what's happening in the West, what's happening in the continent, the problems remain the same, irrespective of the industry, right? Women have to be empowered. Women have to be helped to recognize the role that they play in the economy of their respective countries. And when the introduction was being made and say, oh, I founded the For Women by Women, it is precisely that, right? Is women in the center of the equation, okay? And for these conversations, we need men to participate in that. So combining all of that, I'll wrap up to say, I see the future of the banking in Africa with a lot of optimism. I know there's a lot of challenges that we have and that we need to tackle in the areas that I mentioned, but I think we are in the right direction, right? I think we are in a direction where we're finding more cohesiveness between our countries. At least it starts regionally, but we've seen that more, and I think we have to continue to do that. And I close it to say, women, stand up and continue to project yourself, continue to put your hand up and say, I can do it. You don't have to wait for someone to give you that authorization to move forward. You do that. You are capable and you are enough. My last comment would be, or a sentence that I would end it with is, in the process of empowering someone, your own power does not get diminished. So let's continue to send the elevator back down for others to ascend in different ways and shape and form. So thank you all for your time. I'm happy to take on any questions or if there's any thoughts, reflections. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Prince, will you allow me to open the floor for any questions and answers? Okay. I think something that has definitely stuck with me is, for when you elevate somebody, it doesn't reduce your power in any way. I think that's such a powerful statement, because many a times people think that if you give them opportunities or if you give opportunities to others, it takes away what you have. So I think that's very important. That's something that has definitely stuck with me. So everybody, I've opened the floor for questions and answers. I will take the privilege of being the host, hosting Sonia, and I will ask the first question. Thereafter, I will go around and yes, Keith, I've seen you. Sorry. Then after I'll ask questions. I'll take other questions from the floor. So you've spoken about digital currencies, cryptocurrencies. So I just want to know that, how do you think cryptocurrencies will actually shape the future of banking in Africa? So I know that there's the concept of central bank digital currencies that is coming up. There's this whole, fact of trying to regulate cryptocurrencies and bringing them into the regulatory framework. I'm just looking at the infrastructure of Africa as well. How do you see virtual currencies shaping the future of banking and the provision of financial services in Africa?
Yeah, that's a great question. I try and avoid talk about the cryptocurrency simply because it's such a debatable, it's a topic that you have people in the different sides of the spectrum, right? In the beginning, when it came up, a lot of people didn't think that it was something that would stick, right? It was just a bubble that was going to bust. But guess what? Fast forward, we've seen more of that, especially in the West. It's taking the West by storm. And we are slowly seeing that the same in the continent, right? So I think if it's regulated, if we create a framework for that, it will play a huge part in that accessibility that we talked about, right? Because not everyone will be, and even now here, we're not going to be banking in the same manner, right? People want things to be practical, right? If we think about what the pandemic has done for us, most of us couldn't even go to a branch. A lot of us before the pandemic, we weren't really keen on that, going to branches for, anything that we wanted to do with our financial banking services. And I think having anything that is electronic would be helping us as clients, right? So if I put myself in a client's shoe, is I want something that is fast, that is simple, that is quicker, that is easy to navigate. I don't want anything complex. So I think the answer would be, it's early stages for us in the continent. We need better structure and we need to make sure that it's regulated, right? Because these kind of new products can also open the Pandora's box for a lot of issues in terms of fraud and whatnot.
Thank you for that. I don't know if there's anybody else who has a question. I can't see hands raised. So Prince, please can you help me to identify people whose hands are raised?
Recording in progress.
Hi, Zainab. Nobody at the moment. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to put forward, please? If you'd like to raise your hands.
If there are no questions, I'll continue asking more questions.
Okay. All right.
So,
thank you.
You also mentioned
there's a hands up here.
Oh, hello? Sorry. Where's the hand?
Hello.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were just interpreting. Yes, sorry. You can ask a question.
I have a complaint that some people are not seeing the interpretation that I'm doing. That's the reason why I raised my hand.
You can see it.
Yeah. So please, I hope you can see me now, so that I can continue.
Is that okay? So my next question is, so we spoke about the use of fintech and in the provision of banking services. So for example, the provision of credit, normally you'd have to have a credit record before they provide credit to you. And of course, somebody coming from a rural place in Africa might not have a credit record or anything like that. So how can banks now better use fintech and algorithms in order to provide financial services to those people? And what sort of initiatives do banks need to undertake for them to educate people and make them financially literate? So things like having life cover, having funeral cover, and things like that. What sort of things should banks do in order to push those sort of initiatives?
Yeah, so that's what I was alluding to when I said that it's key if we want to see that progression of our banking system or financial services overall in Africa. Banks need to partner with those fintech companies, as well as when you think about telecoms, it is key that banks have those partnerships with the telecom companies. What can banks do? I think traditionally, a lot of the education comes with individuals going to a bank, into a branch, right? And only when they discuss with their bankers, they will then understand all the complex products the banks have to offer to their clients. But now I truly think, and especially to cater to those that are not in the, they are in the suburbs or outside of the main city, you have to go to the actual areas, right? Those cities, you have to go and create those educational programs. You need to carry yourself and go to the deep ends of a particular city outside of the capital and bring those lessons and educational material to our traders, to our women in the agriculture. Literally be physically in those cities, run programs for like a week. That is the only way that we can achieve that, right? A prime example that I see happening in Guinea-Bissau, we have a lot of bank managers taking a couple of staff members and they'll go for a week to those rural places and they'll explain, these are the services that we have to offer. You might not have bank or track record because that is essential in the conservative way of the traditional way of doing banking. But now with the fintech, we can do that. And that's why we need to collaborate. And fintechs, they're not there yet to offer certain kinds of more sophisticated products, but certainly for the basics, for the ones that you have Sonia that just set it up, I just have a SME, like a small enterprise. I am not going to know all of the complex products that the bank can offer me. And I think one thing that I have to mention as well, women in particular, we're more conservative in the way that we do business, in the way that we launch and scale up. Men are more, they're more daring in the way that they do things. We are more conservative. We save more. We're more like, okay, we're going to need to take care of the family, so I can't really spend what I have. That is why I think it's very, very important, to your point, to have these sessions locally with the people that are transacting and doing these businesses. It does make a difference, right? Because the other thing that is sort of the elephant in the room, the illiteracy is still there, right? So we need to find mediums to communicate with our people that makes sense, something that is simple and efficient, right? Because often banking is a bit complex in the way that we explain things, but let's break it down to layman terms.
Thank you very much for that. I see, Gubuza, your hand is up. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question. Thank you.
Yes, the floor is yours. You may ask.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Sonia.
Hi there.
I'm Kakamba. I'm calling from South Africa.
Nice to meet you.
Yes. I would like to ask a question concerning transformation in the banking sector. I am posing this question in reference to the terms of preferential treatment. Given the backgrounds of our countries, we know that people from disadvantaged groups or marginalized groups have so much difficulty accessing benefits in the banks. And most of banks are international banks. Most of the countries have got international banks. People aren't treated the same because of race and because of policies that are not updated. Policies from the past are still being used in the banking sector. So you find out people from different races aren't getting enough support from banks. There's preferential treatment. Certain people from certain races are getting all the support for their businesses. They are getting benefits. Their businesses are moving on. They are moving forward. While other races are stuck, they cannot get support from banks and stuff. So what is your say regarding transformation in the banking sector? Thanks.
No problem. Thank you for the question. I think this is one of those questions that I think we know it exists, and we know there's a lot of work that needs to be done to change that. And it starts with changing the mentality. And changing the mindset is not an easy thing to do. When I mention fintechs, right, this is where I think fintechs can actually close that gap. Because if you are doing an application through an app, right, there are certain elements that will be removed. They're not going to see what you look like, right? The race card won't really play a part. But that's my opinion. I don't know how deep that is in SA or any other countries, but the way I see the fintech playing a key role in this particular discrimination, which is, exactly what it is that it should remove all of these cards that are traditionally,
but I have shopping to do.
Traditionally seen. I think someone is muted.
With?
I don't know.
Okay. I'll continue talking and see if we can all hear me, because there was someone else that was, yeah. So like I was saying, I think it's am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Sorry about that.
No problem. I think it's a combination of things, right? The mindset, the fact that we can use technology to remove some of these little discriminations. And it goes back to my first point that I made about regulations and how we implement these things. If we have these things in place, and if we have a strengthened regulatory landscape, it makes it difficult for these things to happen on the ground, right? That's why I said my full disclaimer in the beginning. I'm not in the continent. I've not experienced it. I've heard about it. But the way I would see it, and this is from the lens of someone that is not there, I'm in the diaspora, we have to trust that there will be regulations that will tackle these. We have to trust that fintech will help remove some of these cards that are played when services are being offered to clients. And that's one of the things that we mentioned on the question that was asked about the partnerships, right? Traditionally speaking, you need a track record to be given X, Y, Z. I use myself as an example. If I'm to get a mortgage, if I'm to get a loan, the bank will see how much I'm earning or, what my expenses are, the typical thing, right? With the fintechs, they came and they caused a bit of a revolution in the way the banking is operating. So I think it's still a long way to go, but I have hopes that things will change. And I'm sorry that I can't give you a concrete solution because I'm not on the ground. I hope this helps.
Yeah, thank you so much. Adetoin, I see your hand is up. Please excuse my pronunciation of the name.
Yes. The pronunciation is Adeton, and the name is coming from Nigeria, from the Yoruba. Let me see, maybe you can see me, but I was putting a background picture. I think I have to remove that if you would have to see me. Now you can't, it looks like funny, isn't it? So I will do that later. And this project picture I'm showing you is the Niger Awareness Track. I did 2019, is about entrepreneurship and digitalization with women and youth in Nigeria across these 4 countries that are really basically where it's mostly needed, where the people are getting into traveling out of the country into the Mediterranean Sea. So this is a project budgeted like some with the government. So how could this be something that could be an emergent effect? Because we basically transfer their 100 sewing machine for people that have already have their tailoring, education. They are already designers and they just needed something to start up with. So these people were able to immediately start up with their life. So we organized kits like small stove equipment for women to just start up with their lives. So we start doing, the cooking version of what they do anyway, but now they're better equipped. And how can we organize that? Because this is something that surely will have a return of invest. Thank you, Amanito. I'm done speaking.
So in essence, you're giving a practical example of what is happening on the ground, right? What you're doing on the ground with these initiatives. Congratulations on that, Adeto.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
No, not yet. Sorry. His hand wasn't up. So this is my session. I'm going to use it to the best of my ability. No, I'm joking. Go ahead, Prince. You can ask the question.
No, thank you very much for the opportunity. I mean, it just also, what you just did just works in line with the question I was about to ask. I mean, thank you very much, Sonia. That's a very beautiful lecture. You are an African in diaspora and you're doing such an amazing work there, and we can pick, we can count a number of African women who are really doing well across the world and all around the world as well. But from your experience and from what you see from New York, you're in New York, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, thank you. From what you see when you sit there and you look at Africa, with a gap, you actually talked about education and also empowerment of women. Now we can actually say that there are more educated or there were more educated than women in Africa, right? I mean, that's now debatable, but I think if we have to be realistic, that's actually what we are pushing at. Do you think that the women in Africa you gave example of some underground women, right? Do you think that they are ready for this change? Do you think that the women are ready for this change? And when I make change, I know we are going to go to the conversation of we need to educate them and empower them and so on. Right, fine. But do you think that they are ready for this empowerment, for this education? I say this because sometimes some conversations we have with some women and maybe just a few men as well, especially from our campaign that we run across the continent. You get to see this attitude from women who either they're not confident enough, or they're scared, or they're just not ready to adjust to the new norm, and it's you don't want to force them, right? And also you're trying to convince them, but you don't want them to actually do it tomorrow and tend to feel like, oh, well, I shouldn't have done this as well, and have some form of regret. So now that's the question. From what you see, do you think that the women in Africa are ready for this change? Because there's a huge revolution going on right now, and we're adjusting to the new normal and talking about fintech and the post-COVID and everything. Are they ready for this change? If your answer is yes, then where do we go from here? If the answer is no, where do we go from here?
I like your leading question, but thank you for the question. I think this could be a session on its own. When I do master classes for women by women, we often talk about some of the topics you mentioned, right? Not just empowerment, because empowerment is it's a word that is now in fashion. But in practice, what does that mean? For me, I think we're not fully there yet. I think we are getting there. Women are becoming more hungry for knowledge, right? Women are becoming more receptive to hear and listen experiences from others. And I'll tell you what, there's one thing that I'll tell you for a fact. It's not just women in Africa. The women in the diaspora, and I'll speak about African women. That is why I founded this particular forum for women by women, to tap into the issue we have with the Lusophone countries. So countries that speak Portuguese, right? The ex-colonies, the Angola, Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau, Cape Verde. We have a challenge there because I mentioned earlier, we have our limiting beliefs, and that's what we need to tackle, right? And if you think about the women that is sitting right now, or, that is trading in Africa, some rural place, and compared to the women that is sitting here in New York that happens to be African and is an immigrant and is, trying to get better lives for their families. The difference there is just the continent. If your mindset is not there to observe and consume knowledge, there's no difference, right? You're just in a different continent. I experience it often because when I talk to some of my mentees, they ask me, how did you do it, Sonia? How did you make it? My answer is always, I've not made it. In my view, I haven't made it yet. Yes, I have a good position. Yes, I am in a great center. Yes, I work in a bank. I can't complain from that perspective, like financially, but that is not the end all, right? For me, it's about education. It's about continued learning. I think we need to continue to push the agenda, right? When you guys launched this initiative, that is a one step closer to the end goal, right? You will get what's the word? Not rejection, but you will get some people sort of either doubting, not understanding the end goal, but it is in you to not stop, right? You have to continue pushing. So to answer your question, I think it's a combination of things. I think certain parts of the continent, people are more hungry for it. They are more ready, for lack of a better word. And the same thing we see in diaspora, right? And that is why we have to continue to build the bridge. And that is why the first time that we spoke, we had our introductory meeting, I said, I am happy to do whatever I can. And help doesn't always have to be financial. Help is the exchange of knowledge. Help is the exchange of lived experience. You cannot say women can't do this if you've not given her the chance to. But women have to want to be given that chance, right? Studies always shows that there is a new role, and men will say, yep, I'm ready. They will apply for it. Women, we're looking at the list to see, do I have all the skills? Oh my God, I can't apply for this. You know, this is a simple example that I'm giving of the limiting beliefs that we as women have. If I can say that, and I'm in the position that I am, imagine women in rural areas that their main objective is to feed their families, is to pay for some medical bills or some medication that their kids, their husband have to take, right? So we are halfway there, I would say, Prince. But it's a thought-provoking question that I think we should carry on that discussion, perhaps another event.
I'd like to also bring in Cornelia into the conversation, because I hear that she also does quite a lot of work with women in diaspora. And I'd like to hear your thoughts, Cornelia, on women and them being ready for the change that is coming. And also, what sort of bridge do you think we need to build in order to, you know, to close the gap, and building the confidence in women as well to go for the things that they want to go for, and not really shying away from things that they know that they can do? We can't hear you. Your mic is still on mute.
Good day, everybody, and thank you, Sonia, for waking up very early for all of us. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Collaborative work as women again. Yes, I come from another community, you know, as a South African, with a very strong mother who has been an entrepreneur, has been a community worker, and so my background is a little bit different to some others that I deal with. And the women I deal with here in the EU, and coming from different countries and different circumstances as well, when I get posed this question, I sit down and I think of, how do I deal with this? So I educate myself first to understand where they're coming from. And then we educate collaboratively together. We educate each other for where we're coming from. And then we start the work, where to go. And I think a very important thing is, everybody always say, oh yeah, where do we start? Where do we go? And where do I connect the dots? But you always have to realize you have to start with educating our women. When we educate our women, I even, as a South African woman who didn't have to deal with a lot of situations that a lot of African women and women from other parts of the world are dealing with, I went into boardrooms sometimes, or I walked into NGOs, and I just had a conversation very ignorantly. And I was said, Cornelia, you can't do this. I didn't know that I was doing wrong. So I had to educate myself as well to get to know these women. And when you start there at this level, at this basis, where you start educating our women, then you go to the next level, then you can move on, and then you build your house, and then you boom. I'm telling you, and when women get together, they are forced to be reckoned with. Desmond Tutu in South Africa always say, I don't like this woman thing, because when the woman gets together, things are happening, things are changing. So I'm very excited for this conference for the next 2 days as well, because I know that even if we just change one woman or one man's life, because behind successful women as well are men who drives us to do what we are doing as well. So yeah, that is my answer to you. Education, it all starts with education. Thank you, Sylvia. Sonia.
Thank you very much. Helen, I see you've unmuted your mic. Is there something that you want to add as well?
Sorry, I was just agreeing with what Cornelia was saying. Yeah. Yes, we have to empower women. And that's why I was so excited about what she was saying. And yes, when we are coming, women, we are empowering. We are here. And it's as Sonia said, empowerment has become a word that it's like everybody is using, but there's no initiative. Nobody's actually doing anything to empower. And it starts with education. If we start with one person, as you said, most women are just, either looking after the kids, paying the bills, but there's so much we can do. So I just love what Cornelia was saying, what Sonia was saying as well. So I'm in agreement. And thank you so much. It's brilliant. Thank you. So excited.
Thank you. And if I can add something quickly, right? We are all literally doing that, right? In sharing our time, in sharing our experience. Education, often we think about the formal education, classroom. This is an educational initiative because we are learning from one another, right? If I can share something from my experience in the corporate world, and this could serve as an inspiration to someone, I hope. There have been times that I go into certain rooms, I am the only woman, and often I'm the only Black woman in that room. Now imagine if I didn't have the confidence, if I didn't know what I was capable of, what I'm bringing to the table, trust me, I'll be shying away from it. But like my esteemed leaders here said, we do not shy away from it, right? I actually love those conversations. I do not want anyone to pigeonhole me into thinking that this is just another Black woman. I am Black. I am proud to be Black. And I want to make sure that I'm sending that elevator back down, like I mentioned before. It is our duty. Cornelia mentioned something like, I go into a room and if I don't know, that's precisely the point. If someone has done the work already, pass the baton to someone else. That is our duty and that is our responsibilities. Okay. And that's what I wanted to add to the conversations with my dear sisters.
Thank you, Sonia. That was excellent. Sorry to interrupt you, Zainab. That's amazing. We have to make more impact and not to be fearful, because I just think it's our time now. We're entrepreneurs. We have so much. We're not just women, as we said, we're not just Black women. We're businesswomen. We're mothers. We're educators. We're this. We're not a label. We're not going to be confined to one corner. So let me not take up the time because I'm not a guest speaker.
No, we're also here to share, Helen. So we're happy to hear your thoughts and your ideas as well. Just checking whether or not there's any other questions. Anybody else who's got a question to ask?
Yes, there is one from Facebook.
Yes, thank you, Sebastian.
So the question is from Barbara Konadu, and she says, education is very important, but the readiness and acceptance of a woman to transform or be educated is a major concern. How can one be motivated to accept and show the readiness to be transformed?
I can take I can give it a try on that one. I think it's part of what we just shared now, right? When you share your experience, it serves as an encouragement for others, right? I think it was Maya Angelou that said this. She said, when you get, you give. When you learn, you teach. That is how we start. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to be, one approach serves the, purpose and it serves for everyone. But you have to start from somewhere. I truly believe in a sharing of lived experience as a great starting point. And I think that is my take on it, in addition to everything that we shared about being on the ground, sharing, educating. But certainly, when one sees that Sonia, Helen, or Cornelia, anyone is able to do it, that certainly serves as an inspiration.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I particularly like that quote by Maya Angelou: when you get, you give, and when you learn, you teach as well. I think that's also quite important. Okay, in the absence of any other questions, before we close off your session, I'm just going to take you a little bit back to banking, and maybe the question may be a little, it may deviate from banking specifically, but I want to ask, what are your thoughts on Africa having a single currency? Do you think it's something viable? Do you think it's something we can see happening in the future? I see Prince is laughing there in the background. So just a bit of context. I'm thinking of doing some research in a single currency for Africa and related matters. So he knows that. So that's why he's busy laughing when I'm bringing up the question.
I think right now I see it as a bit of a utopia. If you think about the aspects that I mentioned earlier, in terms of the regulation, in terms of our legal constraints, different jurisdictions, it is a challenge. And also you have different powerhouses in the continent. So achieving that can be a huge challenge. And if we pick the EU, right, when the euro currency came about, we saw that, now it's established and everything, but in the beginning, I remember coming, I was in Portugal at the time when the euro was, when our local currency, Scudo, was converted into euro. You saw countries like Spain and Portugal and Greece, they're not at the same level as the big Germans and France of this world, right? Can we achieve that in Africa? Maybe, not at this stage. I think we did that with the CEFA, right, in West Africa, because I know Guinea-Bissau is part of it. But it's very imbalanced. So I think it's not a level playing field yet, but it's certainly something that we can aspire to achieve. But we need a lot of work in that space.
We need to be more united.
Absolutely, we need to.
Mm. All right.
Listen, we can't even travel freely like that in our continent.
Yeah, that's true.
You want us to have a currency.
Yeah, but I think the free trade agreement, that's a step in the right direction as well. So hopefully
I'm looking forward to that session, actually.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for your time. I forgot you were in the States, so you did wake up much earlier than the rest of us. Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
Helen, I see your camera has gone off. At this point, it's the time where I hand back over to you. Thank you so much again, Sonia. It was such an insightful session. I really enjoyed it. And looking forward to further engagements and conversations with you.
Thank you. It was an honor and a pleasure. You know where to find me. I am here for whatever you need. And, congratulations once again for this amazing event. And I'm sure we will walk away with something that would, make us feel a bit empowered and encouraged to do and to create change. Thank you all.